Hi, it's Monica Shah. And in this episode of Magnificent Marketing, we talked about how you can make more money. It's actually an inside game and it's a lot easier than you think it is.
Hello, everyone. I'm here today with Monica Shah. And Monica is a seven-figure business coach who helps entrepreneurs build businesses that support their ideal lifestyles. After receiving her MPA from the Kellogg School of Management and working in marketing for L'Oréal Paris, Monica left corporate to start her first company and then her second company, Revenue Breakthrough. Today, she takes her clients step by step through building, growing, and expanding their businesses. She combines her business acumen with her intuition and healing abilities to help her clients get unstuck, eliminate self-sabotage, and move through fear. She is also the author of Getting Rich, You're Doing It Backwards, and Pause, 52 Questions That Lead to More Money and Time. And today, we're going to talk about making money. It starts with the mind and then the bottom line. Monica, how are you doing today?
I am so excited to be here.
Yeah, I am too. I think that not only entrepreneurs, but especially entrepreneurs and business owners and people in business, we all have issues with money. I think it's just an innate human deal. Some are born into money and they have this mindset that they should always have money. And that's part of why they do have money, I've learned, which makes a whole lot of sense, but it could be frustrating for those who don't, right? So I think dealing with money, feeling valuable, it's just something that we all deal with. So I would love for you just to kind of start at the top here and talk about why entrepreneurs and a lot of us struggle with money so much.
Yeah, fun. It's interesting because here's what happens. We're growing up, and when you're growing up, you're not supposed to talk about money. I mean, money and sex are the two biggest taboos. And I feel like we talk more about sex than we do about money. And then you're not I know so many people, like when I'm in groups of live rooms and I ask people, how many of you got in trouble for asking the question, how much does daddy make? Or how much does mommy make? Or why can't we have that car? Or how much should we spend? How much is that? Right. And you get in trouble for having those conversations when you're growing up. And then what happens is, even when you get older, like if you're celebrating the fact that somebody got a raise, all of a sudden it's like, you can get them drinks, you can celebrate with them, but you're not going to hustle up next to them and be like, so tell me how much more you're making, right? Like that's just not happening. And then you become an entrepreneur. And suddenly it's like you're asked to speak about money all the time, openly. It's like one big bait and switch. Like suddenly you have to ask for money every time somebody comes to you and wants to be a client. And you're told to look at your numbers, and you've got to know things like conversion rates and revenue and expenses and profit, and be able to look at a profit and loss statement, and then be able to make sound money decisions. Like, how much am I going to spend on a podcast? Or how much am I going to spend on videos? Or who am I going to hire? And then it's like we're suddenly expected overnight to become good at making money decisions, to become comfortable with talking about money, to become confident with asking about money, when most of us were raised to never speak of it. So ultimately, this is one of the reasons that we all struggle with it, is that it's not really taught. I mean, even in business school, I have my MBA from the Kellogg School of Management, which is a great business school. And there's not one single class in there about how to deal with money personally or how to deal with it professionally. Like as a business owner, you're taught to look at money for bigger companies, other people's money, but not your money.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like being an entrepreneur is money issues on steroids, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all you're dealing with it. And I think, today, we're really going to be focusing on, the mindset part of all this. And there's a lot of people out there who immediately are going to be like, yeah, I get it. I believe in it. I still don't quite understand it all. And I'm here to listen to help. And there's going to be some other people who are like, law of attraction, whatever, that's stupid and that's not real. But don't know how to talk to those people right now outside of, I believe it. Lots of us believe it. The power of your mind is paramount. I mean, it's gargantuan what it can do for you. So on that note, though, it's not only about making money and learning how to deal with it all is going to help us get through it. But it's not only about making money, it's about keeping it. And I believe having a high self-worth and a high identity of yourself is paramount to keeping it. Because if you start like having so much success and you don't feel worthy, you don't feel valuable, you're going to self-sabotage. So can you talk a little bit about that for us and what your thoughts are here?
Yeah. So that worthiness piece is one that we all strive for. Like, I'm valued, I'm worthy of this. And there's two real components to it. I believe there's two categories around it. The first category is, I don't think we need to get into this one as much, but I think it's important to say that I believe that confidence is earned, not learned. And so what that means is that especially if you're in the personal growth or, personal development kind of side of things, there's this tendency to think that if I just get more certifications, if I just get more training, if I just learn more, if I get more letters behind my name, then somehow I will then be worthy of asking for money, and I'll be worthy of raising my prices, and I will be worthy of having people speak about me and being visible. And what's interesting about that is that I literally have met people with tons of letters behind their names and so many certifications and spending lots of money on training, and they still don't feel worthy of asking for money, and they don't feel comfortable, in a sales conversation or maybe on a stage. And much of that is because it doesn't come from learning. Like, it's not a theoretical thing. The way that you become worthy over time is by practicing asking for money. And not even, when I say practice, it implies that you're not really doing it. So I should say really doing it, asking for money, and knowing that over time, you're going to sharpen your skill sets. And what I find is interesting, especially around things like raising your prices or asking for a larger amount of money, is that no one feels ready for it. There's not a morning where I've ever woken up in my entire business career of 15 years and thought, today I feel ready to raise my prices. Like, it just doesn't happen. But what's interesting is that the first time you ask for it and someone says yes, all of a sudden that confidence switches on. And that's the piece that starts to have you be able to step into your worthiness in a bigger way. So that's the piece one, is sort of like the action piece. But then there's another underlying piece that I think we want to dive into here, which is, what are the voices in your head saying to you? What are the money voices getting at? So between the ages of 0 to 7, we're like sponges. And what that means is everything that we hear, see, or heard around money, or everything, went into us like a sponge, and we didn't question it. And it turned into a belief or a value. And that belief or value is driving every action that we take around money. And so what I like to have the image of is that it's like we all have this boardroom table in our head. And that boardroom table, it has a chair, and in every chair, there's a voice around money. And some of those voices are our voices. Some of those voices are the voices of our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles. If you believe in past lives or ancestors, it could even be voices from past lives or voices from ancestors around money. And they're all saying different things. And they're driving both our conscious decisions and our subconscious decisions around money. And just to give like a simple example, a great client of mine came to me, and he had worked for 10 years on making a movie. And he was also a consultant, like a full-time consultant. And the reason that it had been taking 10 years, when we got really to the root of it, was because his parents had said, he's first generation, and his parents were very risk averse. And they said, you will never make money as a creative. You will never make money making movies. And so therefore that drove the fact that he only worked on the movie in his free time. He didn't really give it full commitment. And literally it had been 10 years in making the movie. And when we finally got to what that voice was, brought it to the surface, and then created a new voice around it, which was, I can be creative and be rich.
Well, let's touch on that real quick.
Yeah.
Let's touch on that. You mentioned he started to turn it around.
Yeah.
And I think you've done a very good job explaining that the situation exists and that we're not all alone and that it happens. It's basically, if you're a human being, this is a challenge to overcome. Now, how can we help guide people to that? Because I believe, growing your self-worth, there's just that self-doubt that you got to eliminate. What are some of the things that, you tell people to start doing, or what can they do to take that first step to overcoming this?
Yeah, I think first to dive into money voices, and we can play with this, both you and I, David, is just first to start by asking yourself, what did your parents and the people that raised you say about money when you were growing up? Like how did they speak about it? And to take a moment and to write that down, because what they said often turned into voices that are existing in your own head. And then a second question is, what did your parents do with the money that they did bring in? So in terms of voices for me, my mom, and this is just a funny story. It's not like a end of the world kind of story, but she used to say, you can't buy food at an airport because it's too expensive. So literally that somehow got lodged into my head. And now I run a pretty big company where I could afford to buy food in an airport. And yet I'll be going on a 5-hour flight and I'll think twice about buying a sandwich. Because my mom said it was too expensive to buy food in an airport. So it's like this sort of thing that just kind of drives your money decisions without even realizing it. And then the second question to consider is, what did your parents do with the money, or family, whoever raised you, do with the money that they did bring in? I have a client whose family gave away every dollar that they brought in. They were a very highly Christian family and believed that was what you should do. And so for her now, she has a real struggle with saving money because she doesn't believe she's worthy of it and that it's unchristian to do that. And then the third question to really look underneath the surface is, what was it like for you? Like, period. Did you have a lot of money growing up? Did you not? Was there a point at which the money shifted? Just generally, what was money like? And again, to do some journaling or some writing on each of these questions. I do it a lot at my live events with people. And what you'll find is that a lot of the experiences that you had as a child or growing up, you're either repeating, or you're doing the opposite, which is you're completely rebelling against it. So like if your father, I have one client whose father was a banker and he saved every dollar, and she cannot save any money because she's really going the total opposite of what he said, because she felt like he saved too much and they didn't get to spend the money and they didn't get to have any fun. So now she has what in her opinion is too much fun with her money. So it's really about starting to identify what's driving my actions. And this is a bit of a Pandora's box, because once you start to open it, you'll be in the shower and suddenly you'll be like, wait a minute, when I was little, my mom said this about money. Or you'll be taking a walk and you'll make a connection that you didn't even realize. Like for me, I remember for like the first 3 years of my business, I would always stack my mail every day. And then on Saturday mornings, I would sit and open all my mail and bills and take care of everything. And there wasn't a reason for it. It wasn't like I didn't have time during the week. For some reason, I just did it that way. And I would often say no to invitations for brunch or whatever with my friends, because that was like my mail opening time, which I never really thought was bizarre until my friends were like, we don't understand why you're doing this. Like, just open your mail every day or open it during the week. And suddenly I connected with the fact that when I was little, my dad used to take me to the office. He ran a company. Every Saturday, he would open all the mail and I would watch him open the mail. Now, he did it for a reason. He had 3 girls he was raising and he didn't have time to open the mail during the week. I did it because I subconsciously thought that's just when you should open mail.
So you've done a good job of, pointing some direction of like identifying where some of your, money demons might be coming from. Now what?
Then what's next? Yeah. So here's what's interesting is that once you've identified what the agreements you've made or the beliefs or the statements or the experiences that you've agreed with that you want to shift, your next piece is to create what I like to call a new money voice, which is which is what you want to believe in. So it can be the opposite of the belief that you have, or it could just be something more positive for you to believe in. And my recommendation is, so my new money voice, again, to work in examples here, for a long time has been money is my rock, which means money is always there for me. Whether it's in front of me right now or not, it is always coming. It is always there for me. Once you come up with what your new money voice is, I encourage you to write it on 7 different pieces of paper or more, and put it all around your house, put it all around your office, put it in your car, put it in your jacket pocket so you touch it when you put your hands in your pocket, and read it all the time, every day, preferably at least out loud twice a day. Now, the reason behind this, and when I used to teach this, I used to just tell people it works. But now when I teach this, we have the advances in science and psychology now to know that the brain is plastic with neuroplasticity. And we know that within 7 to 14 days, new grooves in your brain are actually forming. So all we're doing in reading these statements and repeating them out loud is starting to create new grooves, new thought patterns in your brain. And once you start to do that, this is the next piece. And this piece you do have to do consciously for a while. The next piece of this is to ask yourself the question, what actions would I take if I actually believed this belief? Or another statement there is, what actions would I take differently if I actually believed this belief? So using the example that I have of money is my rock, to this day, that is my statement. So if I feel like I'm looking at my bank account and we haven't hit a number we want to hit, or we're low on a launch, I always say to myself, okay, if money is my rock, then I actually don't have to worry about this. That's a different action or a different behavior than what might be natural for me to go into worry or to go into anxiety around it. I have another client, her money story, her new money voices. For her, she was really working on people giving her money. So she said, like in sales conversations. So her new voice was, I am worth every dollar I charge and people gladly pay it. And so if she were to believe that, it means that she actually has to go and ask for it because people aren't going to pay it if she doesn't ask for it. So it suddenly changes her behaviors and the actions that she's taking around it. And that has to be done consciously for a while. Like I would say for the first 30 days that you're doing this. And then after that, you're just going to start to shift both your beliefs and your behaviors. And I have to say that this is a bit like peeling layers of an onion. So you probably want to go back once you feel like you do have your particular belief down and unpeel another layer and look at, okay, what's the next belief that I want to work on, and what's the next new belief that I want to create?
That's very interesting. And I definitely get it. That positive reinforcement, you always think back to the Saturday Night Live skit where that Lewis or whoever it was is, I'm good enough, I'm strong enough, and people love me, right? And I know that was kind of tongue in cheek, but it's real. You are what you believe, and you got to believe before you achieve. And kind of easier said than done, but to know that that's part of the equation, and just, getting your subconscious to believe all these things. And it does take the conscious mind. That's where a lot of the misperception is of all of this. And you might touch on meditation techniques and some other stuff as well. But that's part of the human element of all of this, is the conscious decision to charge up your subconscious to start acting in your favor instead of potentially against you. Do you, on that note, do you suggest other stuff? Do you suggest meditation, walks?
I do. Yes. And before I talk about that, I also think it's important, though, to add to that, you are what you believe, but you are also what you do. So I do think people part of the
Yes,
equation here.
absolutely.
And the other part of the equation is, we can work on mindset all day long. And in some respects, mindset is the easiest piece, because being able to shift, like see a belief and then shift it and then repeat it daily is actually not that hard. Because it doesn't require you to leave your comfort zone. You're still in your house, you're still repeating things. It's a new habit, but it's not necessarily a hard habit. What really has to be combined with this is a new action that gets paired with that new belief system. So it's one of the reasons, like when I run my events, we definitely go into mindset. But then we also go into what are the new sets of actions that go with that new belief system, because that's the piece that's going to take you out of your comfort zone. And when we talk about things like neuroplasticity, new grooves in the brain, new ways of thinking, that actually happens a lot faster with actions than just by repeating belief systems. In fact, that's like the change on steroids is actually actions, taking action, facing fears and walking through them. So I just want to make sure that we are, because I think that's where like the law of attraction and the power of manifesting tend to leave off, is around, they seem to make it seem as though you're going to live in your comfort zone the whole time that you are attracting something. And that's just not been my experience at all. Like everything that I have ever gotten has been on the other side of my comfort zone. So
No, I hear you. And I had somebody explain it to me as I've kind of been looking into this for a decade plus, intently reading, practicing, all of that stuff. And that was my misperception. You have the law of attraction, here you are, and here's these big goals, and you think it's bringing you down. It's going to come to you. When the reality is all the effort, all the mindset, all the work, all the actions that get taken, because actions come through creative ideas, interactions, experiences, people into your life. You just got to be paying really close attention, right? And it pushes you up to meet what you're putting out there. I don't know if you agree with that, but that really explained it to me in such a way where it's like, that's where people are like, oh, I'm going to have $1 million. 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 And you just keep saying that. And that's all you say. Well, I ain't coming to you. What it's going to do, it's going to grow you. 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 And then you're going to get it. So I mean, is that kind of how?
Yeah. And I love that. I love that metaphor, because it's when you're talking about the moving upwards, the actions are what is moving you upwards, right? So that the actions are what is increasing your container to be able to hold this intention that you put out there. But here's what's interesting, right? The reason I wanted to say that before I talked about something like meditation, I meditate every day for 20 minutes. I use an app called Headspace, which I absolutely love. I also use Insight Timer, which, just for any of you out there that are trying to create a meditation habit, sometimes guided meditations are a great way to start. I also like Headspace because it has like a 30-day courses, which are really fun, because it'll just keep you excited and continuing on something. But here's what's interesting about this. The way I teach this to my clients, right? I'm a 7-figure business owner. I have multiple seven-figure business owners as clients. And what's interesting is that if you are going to play this game that you're talking about, that we're both talking about here, where you've set your intention, and you've got the law of attraction and manifesting that you're working towards, and you're here, and you're needing to sort of do the actions to be able to create the container in the space, to be able to call in that which you want. When you're doing that, you have to have a way in which to deal with the discomfort of growth, a way in which to deal.
Please dig into that. Please dig into that, because that's the thing I think everybody gets stuck on.
Yeah.
You get going, and then you have a setback, and you're like, this doesn't work. I'm done. And then you start saying like, I'm really intentional with my words these days. Like, I don't even want to like say it here. I don't even put it on the universe. Like I can't catch any, you can fill in the blanks. I'm not going to do it. So then it's almost like, you're starting to grow and it's starting to sprout. And then the universe hears that. And then it's like, well, your wish is my command. You don't get it. In that part, please dig into that. Because I think a lot of people will get going, and the people who have achieved it. But let's help out all these people who are, like a bad stock market, right? That get going and then go down. Yeah.
And I think the first piece is understanding that growth is not in a straight line. And I have had the privilege and the pleasure of being around highly successful people for most of my life. And what's so funny about them is that a lot of them are delusional. And I say that in a loving way. They're delusional because they will say things like, oh, I just got it, or it just happened to me, or it was overnight, or I just went from point A to point B. It's not true. It's not true for anyone. And as someone who's been able to like sit down with these highly successful people and like get some shots or get a beer or have a coffee or whatnot, depending on what age I was when I did it, you get the real story. And the real story is this: all like the way growth looks is it's actually circular, right? Or it's a spiral. It's an upward spiral. So when you grow, there's going to be a setback, and then you grow a little bit more, and then there's going to be setbacks. So I think the first step is to really to manage your own resistance around the setbacks, right? And instead of resisting them, to understand that this is part of the process. But then the second piece is to understand that things like meditation and having a spiritual practice in the morning, whatever that is, I really recommend meditation. I recommend reading. I call it the 7-page rule, which is 7 pages of some spiritual or inspirational text every morning, or listening to something every morning. Those are key to build faith and trust. And
now let's touch on that real quick, though. Well, no, go ahead, finish up, and then I'll.
Yeah, well, because faith and trust are the keys to resilience, right? If you know that everything is okay, no matter what, like that all is well, even if your favorite client just backed out of a contract, that all is well, even though you thought you were getting into a partnership and it turns out that this person isn't what they say they were, that all is well, even if your new employee that you hired, you find out is actually not doing their job. Like if you can get to a place where you get the bigger picture, that you can see the connection between what you're doing and the fact that all is well and that you're growing anyway, and that this is part of the process. What will then happen is you're still going to fall. We all fall. You're still, and I believe it's completely okay to whine and to rant and to mourn when you fall. But the key is, how quickly can you get back up? Right? How quickly can you start again? And I believe the way that you shorten the time to being able to A, take a risk, B, get through it, C, fall down, D, get back up, which is the path of growth. That is absolutely the path of growth, is to make sure you have got a strong practice in faith and trust. And that you know how to surrender to what the world is putting in front of you.
No, I love that. Now, on that note, having these actions to take, and I'm not talking about the business and the learning and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this part of it all.
Yeah.
Having your morning routines, writing everything out, reading, doing this and doing that. What I've experienced in talking with others is the irony of this statement I'm about to make is like you're doing these things, and then when you have something come up and you miss one, then you freak out about missing stuff. And then you start beating yourself up because you're missing a day. Now, on the flip side of that, there were times that I was getting going on a morning routine, and then I'd wake up and man, those push-ups and those stretching and the meditation I was about to do stressed me the hell out. Like, oh shit, I got to get to work.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, like, how silly is that? Now, I actually started giving myself a pardon and a break when I didn't beat myself up. And then now I look back, and then now, man, I'm really good with my morning routine. I actually look forward to it. I look forward to my lunch walk every day. I mean, I just love it. But in the past, I used to beat myself up when I couldn't do it because stuff comes up, life gets in the way. Something happens in the morning, or you have an early morning meeting or something. So can you talk about that real quick and what you would tell those people who come to you that get stressed out when they don't do the things that are supposed to de-stress them?
Okay.
Did you understand my question?
Yeah, got your whole question. Yeah. And I think it's a brilliant one. And I think what you're talking about is such a common pattern of behavior. So a couple things that I think are important. I think listen, I think the whole thing about like wake up at 5 a.m. and do a morning ritual and have it be 60 or 90 minutes, like I think that's hard for a lot of people because I actually think that the people that write the books that are like, you should do it every day are in the top, they're not top, are in the 5%. And here's what I mean by the 5%. And I don't even know if the statistic is right. I'm just making up that it's 5%. But from my experience, 95% of us aren't actually conditioned to do the same thing every day all the time. And in fact, we're entrepreneurs because we don't like doing the same thing every day all the time. We like adventure, we like excitement, we like innovation, right? So even for a lot of my clients, even the thought of, oh my gosh, waking up and doing this and then this and then this every single morning feels like the opposite of what they actually want to do. So I think first it's really about understanding that we can't force ourselves into a box that we're not actually going to be in. I'm not in that box. I don't do the same morning routine every day. I don't even do a morning routine like all the time. What I live by, what I tell my clients to live by, is what I like to call the 70% rule. And the 70% rule is that 70% of the time you're doing what I call the ideal road, which is that you're living on the ideal road, and everybody has a different ideal road. And on the ideal road lives your great workout routine, your meditation practice, your positive behavior, your positive attitude, your quality time with friends and family, your date night, like all the things that we want to have in our ideal life. But the concept that we all need to understand is that life isn't about living on the ideal road for most of us. I mean, there is that 5% that is super disciplined. And I do think that's like a genetic thing. But for most of us, life is about how quickly can you get back on the ideal road without blame, without shame, without judgment when you realize you're not on it. And how quickly can you own when you're off the ideal road that maybe you needed to be off of it, right? Like maybe that was like a positive thing for you.
It's funny you mentioned that. I just read something the other day or watched it or something. I can't remember. But so I'm going to give the listeners here a couple of things that I think they're really going to like to hear. And one of them being that procrastination, and this is from a spiritual and, business, coach like you is where I heard this from. But procrastination is sometimes the universe's way of telling you to take a break. And a lot of times we beat ourselves up over procrastination, but sometimes it's saying, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that right now. Maybe you shouldn't read that book right now. Maybe you shouldn't do this. Maybe you shouldn't do that. Now, I'm not giving everybody a pardon to procrastinate everything and not do anything. We've talked a lot about action items and action steps, and the majority, and this is going to lead to my second point. And the majority of what you should be doing should be those positive things, but it doesn't need to be 100%. And on that note, and what I've read, and I've heard this from many people, so I believe it's a law, but you have the law of attraction, but you don't need to be 99% or 100% or 80% or 70% even, as you just mentioned. I don't believe you need to be 51% in the positive. You just need to have the majority, the simple majority. And please validate this or invalidate this or give your own take on it. But if you get to 51% of your thoughts in your head being positive, if you get to 51% of belief, if you get there, versus the times that you need a break, or you do have, your morning that you mentioned when things go wrong and you got to take a break to lick your wounds. But if you're just 51%, the law turns in your favor, and it's a law. Is that a statement you agree with?
I would. And I think I totally agree with that. I think, it really speaks to, I've been doing this work for over 15 years now. And so I feel like I've been on every different pathway of I'm going to be better, or I'm going to do more, or I'm going to be like her, or I'm going to be like him. And then I've been on the, other pathways of being more open and spiritual and surrendering in. And what I think really it's about is just constant improvement. Can you be better today than you were yesterday? And, so much of what we want to have happen in our lives happens over time and through problem solving. So I remember when I set to commit to working out, like working out more, 4 or more days a week. It took so one of the things that I think is so important for every entrepreneur to do is get into a habit. And again, using the 51 or the 70% rule as much as you can, to reflection at night and reflection at the end of the week, on your 3 wins that happened during the day and the lessons that you learned that day. And then the 3 wins that happened over the week and the lessons that you learned that week. Because what happened, I noticed, is that every night when I was trying to craft my exercise routine, I kept not doing it. Right. Like I would wake up at 7 and then procrastinate until like 9. Then I had to start my day and I wouldn't work out. And it took a month and a half of me journaling about why this was happening for me to get to the root of the problem. Then I got to the root of the problem, started one exercise routine, and then slowly started to stop doing that one as well. And I was sore and tired and bitter. Again, it took me another month and a half to get to the root of the problem, which was, for like, it was all problem solving. As I got to the end of the year, I finally found an exercise routine that works for me. Now I do it and I love it. As you say, like, it's joyful for me to do. It doesn't feel like a burden. But I would say it took probably the majority of the year.
That's so funny. I mean, you went through the exact same path I did. Exactly. Yeah. And inch by inch is a cinch, right? By the yard is hard.
And I had to problem solve it. I think if I hadn't had the awareness of like, okay, just keep trying. Like I always tell my clients, like, new beginnings are sacred, right? Don't judge yourself on starting over. Because I feel like we start over every day. Mm-hmm. Like every day we're starting over on some new habit or some new behavior. And if you can start to look at what are the root causes of why I'm not doing something and do it and lead into curiosity instead of judgment, that can lead you to a life of constant improvement. Because, I think it took me a while to understand that there's no one keeping score. It's not like we're going to get to 95 and someone's going to be like, well, precisely 999 days you didn't work out, and 599 days you did your sales calls, right? Like no one's keeping score except us. So really what it's about is how can you look at yourself in the mirror and know today I'm doing better than yesterday? Or if I didn't do better today, I'm actually going to take a moment and ask myself why, without judgment, without punishment, without shame, and really just lighten the load for ourselves instead of trying to beat ourselves up all the time.
I think that's a great point to end on. And, in listening to this, I hope everyone just give yourself a damn break, right? And that awareness that this exists, the awareness of some potential small steps that you can take and look at them as small steps. And it's just inch by inch, just keep, become aware of, your struggles or what potentially, and put some focus on it. And then from there, start doing some little steps here and there. And then eventually you'll get there. So it's not going to be one giant leap and you're not going to meditate for 30 days in a row and $1 million check or Publishers Clearinghouse is going to show up at your door. Well, maybe they will. Who knows? But in general, though, just give yourself a break. Get going, small steps, become aware of your issues and, just work through it. And you'll eventually get there. It's, like I said, it's a law. Monica, do you have anything you'd like to leave us with? Any parting thoughts?
Just one thing to just sort of close up what we were talking about before. I think the greatest learnings in life are through assessment and reflection. And so I think that's a real key piece to it. It's not actually through achievements, because by the time you get to the achievement piece, you're on to the next one. Mm-hmm. So I really think it's about being able to stop at night, celebrate your wins, look at your lessons, stop on Sundays, celebrate your wins, look at your lessons, and live in the place of constant improvement instead of trying to live in the place of having it or perfection.
Awesome. And all your wins, people. You go home, you have a happy dog, you have a happy wife, you have a clean house, you have nice parents. Like celebrate it all. Celebrate it all. We all have so much to be thankful for. So, Monica, thank you so much. How can people continue to learn from you?
So a couple things I have one of the things, that action piece around what to do in your business to make it all, like, to make the revenue start to happen, can be really confusing for people. So one of the things that I recommend is I have a gift. It's called my money making marketing calendar, and it lays out all of the actions that you need to take to make money, the order, the frequency, when you need to do them. You can get that at revenuebreakthrough.com/marketing calendar, revenuebreakthrough.com/marketing calendar. And if you want to connect with me directly, we are at revenuebreakthrough.com, or you can email us at support@revenuebreakthrough.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Monica. This was a very fun and enlightening conversation. And until next time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So fun to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the latest podcast. Feel free to go to magnificent.com/blog to see the show notes for this interview, as well as those from many other of the world's top marketing experts. Have a great day.